Joe! ジョーの野郎。鬼姫が完全にぶっ潰しやがって。
Oh my god. Hello everyone, welcome to Joe Consumes Cinema. I'm your host, Superfight, and today we have Ashita no Joe, episode 41. So last episode was really good. Dangpei, Nishi, and Joe all went up to the mountains to relax. Slumtown sort of invited itself to kind of do that. But all things considered, it was a really good, effective recovery period for Joe. And yeah, now he's re-energized and focused on fighting Rikishi. They shook hands right after he smashed Wolf's face in, and yeah, it really seems like we're going to get right to it. I'm guessing this episode might be like a training camp preparation for that fight. I'd be amazed if they just started and we just got the fight. I think that's a little too quick. Now, I have been told that episode 50, there's a bomb. You know, I have that in the back of my head. I don't know what it is exactly, but something major is supposed to happen in episode 50, so I don't know. Where it is right now in the story, it kind of doesn't feel like we're going to have to wait till episode 50 for the fight between Joe and Rikishi to be made. Like, I could totally see this episode being, you know, a training camp episode, maybe even another one after that, but then I think we're going to get the actual fight between Joe and Rikishi, so yeah, I don't know what episode 50, you know, the bomb that people have been warning me about could be just yet, but I haven't been given any spoilers. I just know something is going to happen at episode 50. But yeah, I am very eager to get to this one, but before we begin, as always, remember to blank, blank, and blank. You know, still very much a small channel, so every like, comment, share, subscribe that we can get really helps out. Really appreciate it. Patreon link down below. I'm really trying to push the Patreon this year, so if you could sign up, even just as a free member, you'd be doing me a ton of good. With that, let's get right to it. The intro has changed. Yeah, it's been updated. The music is still the same, but it's got way more relevant footage from all of his events in the show. Rikishi Toru's challenge. Okay, so we're in January. Newspaper's finally picking up on it. But no official fight date has been set. They're just hyping it up.
Joe, Rikishi, 因縁の対決か。これは今年は大仕事になりそうだ。
Rikishi's theme is so cool.
新年早々目標をつかむ。限界じゃありませんか。
限ね。いよいよやるのね。
Challenge Joe.
本物なら遠慮会釈なくリングの上で叩きのめしてやれますよ。二度と立ち上がれないまでに。矢吹にしても俺にしてももう待てないところまで来たのかもしれません。宿命なのかもしれませんね。
お邪魔しますよ。暑いな、おい、なんだよ、これ。
Multiple tea kettles and steam roomed.
暖房どころかサウナバスだぜ。
He's shadowboxing in the steam room with clothes on.
力士選手だ。手袋の上にビニールのカッパかぶって。
取材は構わんがそこを閉めてくれませんか。室温が下がる。早く。
そうだ。ファイティング原田が全盛時代バンタム級で減量に苦しんだ時。そういや、あの時原田はこれとそっくりなことをやったって。
いよいよ本格的バンタム級への減量を始めました。
バンタム級へ？
The time has come to fight Joe, and he needs to drop in weight in order to make it happen.
そこには矢吹城がいますから。
こいつはいよいよ力石矢吹の世紀の対決。どうもありがとうお嬢さん。
こうしたらいられるぞ。
へえ、本当かい。力石がバンタム級へ減量を始めたってな。ああ、絶対間違いないんだ。この目でちゃんと。へへ、時ちゃ張り切りたくなるね。こいつは春から縁起が嫌と来たもんだい。なおっさん。へへ。明日にでも力石を KO したくてうずうずした。力石と俺とはないつか決着をつけなくちゃならない、つまり因縁の対決ってわけだ。楽しみだぜ。
Once again, Joe rushing into something he's not quite ready for, at least in Dangpei's eyes.
いよいよ来たか。この日の来るのをどんなに待っていたことか。来い力士、もう待ったなしだぜ。
They changed the outro.
奥さんみんなこの俺を情け無用という
This is Rikishi focused.
おいら僕さ
Okay, it took some time just to gather my thoughts. So that was episode 41. Pretty good, mostly a more reflective episode. So we just got the new year, and everyone's coming out with their New Year's resolutions, and Rikishi has come out with his, where he's decided to drop a weight class to the bantamweight division so he can officially challenge Joe. Now, I did talk about this before where I mentioned that despite the fact that Rikishi is like a natural walking around at that weight lightweight, Joe is very much a natural bantamweight, so there was always a size discrepancy between the two of them, which made the fact that, Joe held his own in the beginning, all that more impressive. I did mention that it's a possibility that because of that size discrepancy, Rikishi may be cutting weight in order to, reach that mark. Now, he's been fighting at lightweight, Joe has been fighting at bantamweight, so that's how they kind of sidestepped it for now. But now that Rikishi is officially going to challenge Joe at bantamweight, he has to cut the weight, and for him to go down in weight class is going to require some pretty intense training. So I actually have cut weight before just because I wanted to see what it was like, put on the wetsuit, and then went for a run and, literally peeled off a good 10 pounds of water weight. And that left me not dehydrated, but definitely fatigued. Like, I felt fine because I could immediately just rehydrate it afterward. Like, I didn't have to then go and actually fight somebody. I was just curious what it was actually like. And just 10 pounds, it really takes it out of you. You feel like you got the flu almost, like you're sick. You're just not moving as fast as you once were. Everything is labored. And fighters do that and then, eat and drink as much as they can to, rehydrate and get their strength back for the actual fight. And you never get all of it back from what you take out. So, yeah, it's a really tough aspect of the sport, and it takes a discipline in and of itself. And the fact that Rikishi is doing this because he wants to challenge Joe just shows his dedication and how much that fight actually means to him, that he's willing to go through all this. But yeah, it is something to consider in their eventual fight. It is a factor. The fact that he's having to cut weight and Joe isn't is a big advantage for Joe, even though, on paper, I'd have to say that Rikishi is the overall more polished fighter and has, thus far performed more consistently. Joe, like I said, all of his fights, he's taken damage because he's relied on this kind of dumb overall strategy in order to achieve victory. And it's not something you want to see from a fighter, in the long term, because that damage really adds up over time. And it's just not something you want to see if you're at all concerned with, a fighter going the distance. So the news that Rikishi plans to drop the weight and challenge Joe officially has reached Joe. He's ecstatic about it. Dangpei is not. And typical fashion, Joe rushes into things, not really thinking things through, just accepts, whatever comes. Dangpei, much more cautious, thinks through all the angles and realizes that right now, this may be just a bridge too far for Joe. Like, it might be a little bit too early, but, once the challenge was set and Joe heard those words, there's no turning him back. There's no convincing him otherwise, he's dead set on this, so we're going to get the fight. There's no way Dangpei is gonna talk him out of it or, anything like that. But yeah, I imagine that next episode is gonna be like training camp stuff, and then either the beginning of the fight or another episode of like training camp stuff. Like, I'm curious how long we have to go until we actually get the fight. Like, I thought this episode was going to be fight announcement, which we already sort of got with the handshake from the previous episode, but it wasn't official. This, I think, is more official. So yeah, the fight is going to be made in relatively short order, I think. I'm going to say next episode, training camp episode, and then the actual fight. I could be wrong about that, but that's just where I see this playing out, like the overall pacing of it. Other than that, they updated the intro title card. Just used like more relevant clips of, Joe's recent activities. His fight with Wolf was in there, and just a bunch of other stuff from, more recent episodes. Not so much, the classic era when he was still in jail, forming the gang with the kids, that type of thing. And then that outro song, I'm not really a big fan of that one. It was more Rikishi focused, so maybe this is just like a one-off thing, but I prefer the other one way more than this. It's not that it's, bad or anything. It just has a different vibe, and, I'm used to it. We're 40 episodes deep, and, I'm singing that outro song every time it comes on, and yeah, it was just kind of jarring a little bit. But yeah, another really good episode. I look forward to hopefully pretty soon, like training camp and then the fight with Rikishi. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for now. So as always, thanks for watching, and peace.